But I took the award as an endorsement of our own struggle in South Africa and the manner in which we have tried to carry out that struggle under very difficult circumstances in our country. And the award is
whatever may be the future of our freedom efforts, our cause is the cause of the liberation of people who are denied freedom. Only on this basis can the peace of Africa and the world be firmly founded. Our cause is the cause of equality between nations and people. Only thus can the brotherhood of men be firmly established. It is encouraging and elating to remind you that despite her humiliation and torment at the hands of white rule, the spirit of Africa in the quest for freedom has been generally for peaceful means to the utmost.
But I took the award as an endorsement of our own struggle in South Africa and the manner in which we have tried to carry out that struggle under very difficult circumstances in our country. And the award is a great encouragement to all of us. For I must say, I regarded the award as not just to Albert Luthuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa. But and the award is a great encouragement. For I must say, I regarded the award as not just to Albert Luthuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa.
Whatever may be the future of our freedom efforts, our cause is the cause of the liberation of people who are denied freedom. Only on this basis can the peace of Africa and the world be firmly founded. Our cause is the cause of equality between nations and people. Only thus can the brotherhood of men be firmly established. It is encouraging and elating to remind you that despite her humiliation and torment at the hands of white rule, the spirit of Africa in the quest for freedom has been generally for peaceful means to the utmost.
But I took the award as an endorsement of our own struggle in South Africa and the manner in which we have tried to carry out that struggle under very difficult circumstances in our country. And the award is a great encouragement to all of us. For I must say, I regarded the award as not just to Albert Luthuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa.
Whatever may be the future of our freedom efforts, our cause is the cause of the liberation of people who are denied freedom. Only on this basis can the peace of Africa and the world be firmly founded. Our cause is the cause of equality between nations and people. Only thus can the brotherhood of men be firmly established. It is encouraging and elating to remind you that despite her humiliation and torment at the hands of white rule, the spirit of Africa in the quest for freedom has been generally for peaceful means to the utmost.
But I took the award as an endorsement of our own struggle in South Africa and the manner in which we have tried to carry out that struggle under very difficult circumstances in our country. And the award is a great encouragement to all of us. For I must say, I regarded the award as not just to Albert Luthuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa.
Whatever may be the future of our freedom efforts, our cause is the cause of the liberation of people who are denied freedom. Only on this basis can the peace of Africa and the world be firmly founded. Our cause is the cause of equality between nations and people. Only thus can the brotherhood of men be firmly established. It is encouraging and elating to remind you that despite her humiliation and torment at the hands of white rule, the spirit of Africa in the quest for freedom has been generally for peaceful means to the utmost.
Aloe. Aloe. Vamos. Vamos dejar. Vamos. Vamos dejar. Amazinha pobre. Unha delote. Vamos. Maloe. 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 Ah! Wash them so.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very, very much indeed for your patience. We're going to be starting shortly. The minister is arriving literally in the next few minutes, and then we'll be able to get the program underway. So please sit tight, and we'll be beginning proceedings very shortly. Thank you so much, as I said, for your patience. I'm Peter Ndoro. I'm going to be program director for today. I'll be taking you through the program. I used to call myself a master of ceremonies, and then I found out in Zambia, a master of ceremonies is responsible for circumcisions. So, so I call myself a program director now. All right, so please, if you could just sit tight for a little bit longer, we're going to start the program shortly. Thank you all very, very much indeed for your patience.
Mudogo nyezi lukanye tu. Mudabela ngentwa sahlo. Utasanga tusheza ngobi. Vamuto mafika. Oh mama. Watanda sana. Avonani. 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 Oh mama. Where my Sujubati? Maloe. Langabantwana. Wamuhle umuntu wamuhle noma. Washo umsuku.
Recording in progress.
But I took the award as an endorsement of our own struggle in South Africa and the manner in which we have tried to carry out that struggle under very difficult circumstances in our country. And the award is a great encouragement to all of us. For I must say, I regarded the award as not just to Albert Luthuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa.
Whatever may be the future of our freedom efforts, our cause is the cause of the liberation of people who are denied freedom. Only on this basis can the peace of Africa and the world be firmly founded. Our cause is the cause of equality between nations and peoples. Only thus can the brotherhood of men be firmly established. It is encouraging and elating to remind you that despite her humiliation and torment at the hands of white rule, the spirit of Africa in the quest for freedom has been generally for peaceful means to the utmost.
But I took the award as an endorsement of our own struggle in South Africa and the manner in which we have tried to carry out that struggle under very difficult circumstances in our country. And the award is a great encouragement to all of us. For I must say, I regarded the award as not just to Albert Luthuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa. Not just to Albert Luthuli, but to South Africa, particularly to the struggling people of South Africa.
Indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Haha. Just as you become comfortable, I'm going to ask you to stand up yet again for the African Union anthem as well as the national anthem. Thank you very much. And I know you all know the words to the AU anthem.
Recording in progress.
Whatever may be the future of our freedom,
Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, our thanks to the Grantville High School Music Choir for leading us in that. Sanibonani nonke. Ninjani. Siyanamkela nina nonke. Welcome to you all, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Mr. Ronald Lamola, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, our esteemed speaker for the 18th Annual Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. Mr. Vusi Ndima, the Deputy Director General of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Head of College of Humanities at University of KwaZulu-Natal. Dr. Sakila Khadebe, the discussant today, International Relations Program Coordinator at UKZN. Mr. Sandile Luthuli and the Luthuli family, members of the Luthuli Museum Council, members of the UKZN Council, Professor ZZ Nkosi, who's here on behalf of Professor Tenjiwe Meiwa from UNISA, Professor Puleng Segalo, Chief Albert Luthuli Research Chair, members of the UKZN Executive Management Team, Ms. Ella Gandhi, South African peace activist and former politician, Luthuli Museum Board and Management, staff, SRC members, students and alumni, members of the Diplomatic Corps, leaders in business and society, members of the Groutville community, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen that are here with us, and for those of you also joining us online, a very warm welcome to you all. And for anybody that I might have missed, all protocols observed. I must tell you, there was somebody who was drunk one time and couldn't remember all protocols observed. And when it came time to say it, he said, all pretty girls observed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this, the 18th Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. And every year, this memorial lecture gives us an opportunity to promote the principles and the values that Chief Albert Luthuli, namely peace, human rights, justice, and the coexistence of people in harmony, irrespective of race, color, and creed. It's been delivered over the years by a number of distinguished luminaries from both here and abroad. And over the years, this lecture really does give us another opportunity to reflect on the legacy of the Nobel Peace Laureate, Chief Albert Luthuli, who is, I think we all know, a national treasure that fought for the freedom, for our freedom, and was a beacon of hope for millions of people as he championed for justice and human rights. This year's lecture comes under the theme, The Pursuit of Peace, Lessons from Chief Albert Luthuli, especially at this juncture in the country's history where we mark 30 years of the country's democracy, and also gives us an opportunity to look forward into the future. And we're reminded of Chief Luthuli's belief that peace isn't something that is merely the absence of conflict, but is also the active presence of justice, equality, and compassion. We're very privileged today to have with us Minister Ronald Lamola to deliver this year's lecture. And as the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, he is more than a lot of the cabinet well placed to speak to us about something that he has to grapple with every single day, particularly on our continent, and that's the pursuit of peace. Just a reminder that for those of you who are attending and perhaps watching for the first time, this lecture series over the years has been a partnership between the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, the Luthuli Foundation, Luthuli Museum, as well as the University of KwaZulu-Natal. And as we've been hearing, it's the 18th edition, and always a great occasion, I think, for us to remember an icon in the country's history. So with that in mind, you will be hearing on the program from the partners that have made sure that this lecture series continues to happen. And as we continue, as I said, to live out the legacy and remind us of the legacy of Chief Albert Luthuli. After the lecture, we'll then discuss for a while the lecture that has been delivered, the message that we've been shared by the Minister. And then we'll invite you to ask questions, perhaps share some thoughts that you might have about the theme that we will be having, discussing during the course of today. But I will be taking you through that program during the course. And then there's a highlight towards the end. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but it really has become a very special part of today's proceedings, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. First, though, it's my great pleasure to welcome one of our first speakers to say a few words on behalf of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, just to say welcome and to share a few thoughts and why it's important for the university to have been part of this journey for so long. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Humanities at UKZN, Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize.
Program Director, Mr. Peter Ndoro. Our guest speaker, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamola. Deputy Director General of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, Mr. Vusi Ndima. Dr. Sakile Hadebe, our discussant. Members of the Luthuli Museum Council, Mr. Sandile Luthuli and Luthuli family members, members of the UKZN Council, Professor ZZ Nkosi, here on behalf of Prof. Tenjiwe Menyiwa from the University of South Africa, Inkosi Albert Luthuli, Research Chair, Prof. Puleng Sekalo, members of the UKZN Executive Management, Ms. Ella Gandhi, Luthuli Museum Board and Management, staff, students, and alumni, diplomatic corps, leaders in business and the legal fraternity, members of the Groundville community, members of the media, distinguished guests, those joining us online, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Ngiyanibingelela. Ninjani. Hayi, nathi siyathokoza. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the University of KwaZulu-Natal today. Your presence here on this Saturday morning is truly appreciated, and I extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for making the time to attend this important gathering. Our heartfelt thanks also go out to the many individuals from across the country and the globe who are joining us remotely and following the proceedings through the live stream. Your participation, regardless of distance, is greatly valued. I bring you warm greetings from our Vice Chancellor, Professor Nanapoku, and the entire executive management and the community of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Although many of them could not join us in person due to their prior commitments, they are also following the proceedings closely via the virtual platform. We are honored to welcome Minister Ronald Lamola to deliver today's lecture, centered on the theme, the pursuit of peace, lessons from Inkosi Albert Luthuli. This occasion offers a unique opportunity to reflect on the enduring legacy of Inkosi Albert Luthuli, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate who played a crucial role in South Africa's struggle for freedom and equality. Inkosi Luthuli's commitment to non-violence, justice, and reconciliation continues to resonate in our pursuit of peace today. Today, we are here to listen to Minister Lamola's perspective and insight on how Inkosi Luthuli's principles can be applied to contemporary challenges in fostering a more peaceful and just society. This lecture arrives at a crucial moment as tensions continue to escalate in various parts of the world. Just this week, the United Nations Secretary General issued a stark warning stating that the conflict in the Middle East is getting worse by the hour. Airstrikes, missile launches, and ongoing violence are placing peace further out of reach in many regions, with devastating effects on millions of people, including women and children. The human toll of these conflicts is immense, and the urgency for dialogue and resolution has never been more pressing. Of course, this lecture will be informed by Minister Lamola's own experience and leadership in justice and governance. The minister was one of the prominent figures involved in the case South Africa brought against Israel at the International Court of Justice late last year. Given his experience, we are confident that his lecture will offer invaluable insights into the path towards achieving peace, both globally and on the African continent. At the University of KwaZulu-Natal, we are committed to being the premier University of African scholarship. This vision imposes on us the responsibility of being at the forefront of efforts to build a better Africa. It enjoins us as members of the University of KwaZulu-Natal community to engage with critical issues, including the challenges that hinder the development of our continent. Conflict has long been recognized as the primary barrier to Africa's growth, halting progress and collaboration and limiting the potential of its nations. By addressing and removing conflict, we can pave the way for Africa to thrive and fulfill its promise. This lecture, focused on the pursuit of peace, is an essential contribution to the broader efforts aimed at bringing stability to conflict-ridden regions of the continent and around the world. As a university, we are proud to host this lecture, which speaks to our dedication to peace building and development. We also value our ongoing partnership with the Luthuli Museum, a relationship that honors the legacy of Inkosi Albert Luthuli, a true son of the African soil. We look forward to continuing this collaboration for years to come, paying tribute to Madlanduna. I hope that Minister Lamola's presence here today will force all of us to critically reflect on how we can each utilize our talents, skills, and resources to contribute to the collective efforts towards achieving lasting peace. Peace requires more than just dialogue. It demands action from all of us. The task is monumental, but the cost of failure compels us to take up the challenge. Once again, let me welcome you to the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Ngiyanamukela nonke ngobuningi benu kulesi sikhungo sezemfundo ephakeme sase-University yakwaZulu-Natal. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. I thank you.
Prof, thanks very much indeed. And again, our thanks to the University of KwaZulu-Natal for supporting this endeavor for so many years. I think it's critically important that the memory of Chief Albert Luthuli is preserved with initiatives such as this, particularly in an academic space where young minds are shaped, and they certainly are the custodians, I think, of knowledge going forward. So I think this setting is ideal for an event such as this. So our thanks to you and the university for your support. Next, we're going to hear from the Luthuli Museum Council, but I just want to say to perhaps a little bit more than just the people that are here. Those of you that are online and are thinking about visiting KwaZulu-Natal, what you want to do is visit the museum. Make sure that if you visit South Africa, if you're beyond our borders, that this is one of the locations that you come to visit, because it is it's a reflection of an important figure, an important period of our history that you won't fully appreciate unless you immerse yourself in the life and the message and the being of Chief Albert Luthuli. So please visit the museum. It's free entrance. You will come away enriched in more ways than one. So that's just a message for you, particularly if you come to this province, and if you come to South Africa, make sure that the museum, the Chief Albert Luthuli Museum, is one of the locations that you visit. But to reflect a little bit more on why we're here, why this lecture series is important, and to welcome you, please welcome the chairperson of the Luthuli Museum Council, Professor Mxolisi Mchunu.
Our program director, Mr. Peter Ndoro, our esteemed guest, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, the Honorable Minister Ronald Lamula, the University of KwaZulu-Natal Vice Chancellor and Head of College of Humanities, Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize, the Deputy Director General of the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Vusimuzi Ndima. Our discussant for today, Dr. Sakhile Hadebe, and members of the Luthuli Museum Council, members of the Luthuli Foundation, led by Mr. Sandile Luthuli, and members of the Luthuli family under the leadership of Umamuveli Luthuli, Dr. Mark Hay, a member of the University of KwaZulu-Natal Council, Professor Z.Z. Nkosi represented the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the University of South Africa, Professor Meyiwa, the Luthuli Research Chair, Professor Kuleng Sekhalo, members of the executive of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, a friend of the Luthuli Museum and the Luthuli family, Ms. Ila Gandhi, the management of the museum under the leadership of Mr. Brian Aba, academics and staff, members of the SRC and fellow students, distinguished alumni, diplomatic corps, members or leaders of the business and the legal fraternity, members of the Crowdville community who are present here. I saw Mr. Kumede, our former colleague in the council. We welcome you, sir. Our guests who are following the proceedings via our various social media. We greet the members of the media who are present here, our distinguished guests. I greet you all. We are very honored to have you in our midst. So on behalf of the Luthuli Museum Council and our partners, I welcome you and I thank you for accepting our invitation to attend the lecture. As it has been said, The theme for the 2024 Chief Albert Luthuli annual lecture is the pursuit of peace, lessons learned from Chief Albert Luthuli. In his Nobel Peace Prize speech entitled Africa and Freedom, presented in Oslo in 1961, Chief Albert Luthuli said, and I quote, "May the day come soon when the people of the world will rouse themselves and together effectively stamp out any threat to peace in whatever quarter of the world it may be found. When that day comes, there shall be peace on earth and goodwill amongst men, as was announced by the angels, that when that great message of peace, our Lord came to earth," unquote. A peaceful world premised on the principles of nonviolence, justice, and human dignity, as envisioned by the Africa's first Nobel Peace Laureate, Chief Albert Luthuli, remains elusive for many in South Africa, the continent, and the globe. Many other great leaders in the class of Chief Albert Luthuli, such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Nelson Mandela, Mahatma Gandhi, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and many more, stand out for their profound contributions in the philosophy of peace, philosophy and practice of peace. They felt, or rather they left an indelible mark on the globe, on the global movement for peace, justice, and human rights. Luthuli believed that peace cannot exist without addressing the root causes of inequality, oppression, and injustice. He believed that the world is a neighborhood and everyone must work for peace and friendship in the world. He also opined that peace is not merely an absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, equality, human rights, compassion, and a sense of conscience. Luthuli called out for courage that rises with danger. And I quote from the speech he delivered in 1961 in Oslo. "As we fight for the liberation of the people who are denied freedom, and only on this basis can peace of Africa and the world be firmly founded," unquote. In saying that, Chief Albert Luthuli affirmed that peace is not a passive state, but a quest, a pursuit that requires courage, compassion, and perseverance. It requires agency from everyone and anyone in the spirit that revolts openly and boldly against injustice, expresses itself in a determined and non-violent manner. For Luthuli, non-violence is a powerful tool to achieve social and political change. It can break the cycle. It can break the cycle of hatred and retribution. Dialogue, negotiation, and mutual respect for diversity can lead to peaceful and coexistence among different communities and nations. In 1994, South Africa achieved a relatively peaceful transition from a brutal apartheid and oppressive apartheid system to an inclusive constitutional democracy. In many, this was called a miracle. Now, the peaceful transition has held strong in the past 30 years, despite the social, political, and economic challenges the country is facing. So this memorial lecture provides an opportunity to reflect on the lessons learned from Chief Luthuli's pursuit for peace through non-violence. The questions, of course, remain. will South Africa's peace and constitutional democracy hold for the next coming 30 years? And how much of a threat are the ongoing social, political, and economic challenges in South Africa to the country's sustained peaceful existence? And to what extent is the ongoing war in the Middle East and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine a threat to maintaining peace in the world? So these are the questions we hope that this lecture will attempt to answer. Compatriots, with those few words, I want to thank you once again for coming and hope that you will find the 2024 Chief Albert Luthuli Annual Lecture insightful. Thank you very much.
Our thanks, ladies and gentlemen, to the Luthuli Museum Council. Thank you for the work that you continue to do and preserving the memory and the legacy of Chief Albert Luthuli. So, Prof. Kunu, we thank you so much indeed, and do not tire doing the good work that you and your council are doing. Thank you so, so much indeed. We've got now our special guests who you've met already, who are going to do a musical rendition for us. Now, one of the enduring traditions that we have here at the Memorial Lecture is a musical or arts performance, and the performers are very carefully selected to add to the richness of the memorial lectures. Some of you may or may not know that Chief Albert Luthuli himself had a really deep appreciation for music, and he was known for enjoying singing, particularly in church choirs, as the church and his belief was very, very important to him. He was also a teacher before becoming a political leader, and at his time as a principal at Adams College, music was very much a part of the educational and cultural activities that he supported. So I know for sure that he would be delighted that a high school choir is leading the music for us today. And we've got the Groutville High School Music Choir, which is an energetic and talented group of young people. And they're pretty passionate about their performances. You're going to experience them now. It's composed of learners from different grades. Some of them are about to write matric, so we wish them well in those exams. But they're performing at various school events, community functions, and national competitions, led by amazing people like music teacher Miss Nonhlanhla Mbonambi, who's a qualified choir master. And so, ladies and gentlemen, to lead us in song, please put your hands together for the Groutville High School Music Choir.
Lord to Africa, neath the burning sun, there are hosts of weary hearts waiting to be won. Many lives have passed away, and in many homes there are voices crying out to the living God. Tell the
Sanbona nogemulo muzi sanbona siyanibingelela sanbona nogemulo muzi siyanibingelela Hayibuka ngayithanda
A big hand for the Grantville High School Music Choir. Wow. Do you know, I always get very, very excited when I see young people. I just have a sense and a feeling that our future is in safe hands and we really need not worry. Yeah? And in fact, some of us with gray hair should actually get out of their way and let them get on with it. Hey? So for those of you particularly in matric, we wish you the very best of luck this year. Good luck. And we look forward to the amazing things that you're going to do for our country in the future. The Grantville High School Choir. All right, so at the beginning, remember I told you there were three major partners really working hard to make sure that these lectures happen each year. It's my privilege now to introduce the third partner who have been really from day one a key figure in making sure these lectures continue to happen so that Chief Albert Luthuli is remembered for the very important work that he did for the millions of people of South Africa alive at the time and those that are still being born to these generations. So from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the Deputy Director General to join us on stage, Mr. Vusitemba Ndima.
Program Director, Mr. Peter Ndoro, Honorable Lamula, the Minister of International Affairs and Cooperation, who is our esteemed guest speaker for the 18th Annual Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. Deputy Vice Chancellor and Head, College of Humanities, of UKZN, Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize, Dr. Sandile Hadebe, our discussant, members of the Luthuli Museum Council, led by the chairperson, Professor Mxolisi Mchunu, Mr. Sandile Luthuli and the Luthuli family members, Dr. Mark Hay, member of council, UKZN, Professor Z. Nkosi, present here on behalf of Professor Tenjiwe Meyiwa from the University of South Africa, Chief Albert Luthuli Research Chair, Professor Puleng Sikhalo, members of Executive Management, UKZN, Ms. Ella Gandhi, Luthuli Museum Management, led by the CEO, Mr. Baba, academics and professional staff, members of SRC and fellow students, distinguished alumni, members of the diplomatic corps, leaders in business and legal fraternity, members of Groutville community, members of the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Arts and Culture, Ministry of Sport, Arts and Culture, I welcome you to this year's 18th Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. More importantly, I welcome our speaker for this year's lecture, Honorable Lamula, who will deliver his lecture under the theme, The Pursuit of Peace, Lessons from Chief Albert Luthuli. This theme resonates very much with who Chief Albert Luthuli was and what he stood for. In 1961, he became Africa's first Nobel Peace Laureate when the International Nobel Peace Institute gave recognition for his beliefs and advocacy for the resolution of conflict through nonviolence and dialogue. In South Africa today, we have the Order of Luthuli, which is awarded to South Africans who have continued in his footsteps to make a meaningful contribution to the struggle for democracy, human rights, nation building, justice, conflict, resolution, and peace. All of us, all of us here today and beyond have a shared responsibility to actively educate, inform, and promote a culture of peace wherever and wherever we are. All of us here have a responsibility to contribute today towards a better tomorrow and future, not only for our families, but for the society at large. As the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, we always look forward to this time of the year of the Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. It is not only because it provides an opportunity for the public at large to reflect on the legacy of Chief Albert Luthuli, as well as where we come from as a country, but also to reflect on the importance of collaborations and partnerships between people and institutions in achieving a common goal. This 18th Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture marks 18 years of a partnership between our department, the University of KwaZulu-Natal, the Luthuli family, and of course, our public entity, the Luthuli Museum. This year, ladies and gentlemen, the Luthuli Museum marks 20 years since it was officially opened to the public on 21 August 2004 by His Excellency, President Thabo Mbeki, the then President of the Republic of South Africa. The continued existence of the Luthuli Museum and many more that were established by the department post-1994 indeed affirms our celebration of South Africa's 30 years of freedom. The redefining and reconfiguring of South Africa's heritage landscape and affirming marginalized histories and heritages continues. This memorial lecture, which is about remembering and celebrating the lives of our icons, offers an opportunity for all of us to rekindle and reignite our commitment to fight and stand for what they believed and died for. And that is a better, peaceful South Africa, Africa, and the world. With those few words, I wish you all the best with today's program. I thank you. Siyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you very, very much, Deputy Director General. And thank you, as I said, for your long time support of these lectures. We really, really appreciate those efforts. Thank you so much indeed. A big hand for the Department of Arts and Culture and Sports. Are you ready for the memorial lecture? Ah, that's it. We're calling it off. Are you ready for the memorial lecture? Do you want to hear the memorial lecture? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to introduce today's keynote speaker to deliver the 18th Annual Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. Mr. Ronald Ozzy Lamola is an accomplished lawyer and politician, currently serving as South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation. Dedicated to public service, previously holding the position of Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. Armed with a law degree from the University of Venda and 2 master's degrees from the University of Pretoria, Minister Lamola brings both a strategic and ethical lens to his work. His current role places him at the center of global diplomacy, where peace, justice, and human rights are crucial to building a better world. As we've been saying, the theme of this year's lecture, the pursuit of peace, lessons from Chief Albert Luthuli, align closely with what I introduced a little bit earlier on. Chief Albert Luthuli believing that peace requires more than just the absence of conflict. It demands justice, equality, and human dignity. And as Minister Lamola embodies these values, he navigates the complex challenges of maintaining peace both in South Africa and globally. And we've seen him do great work recently, particularly at the International Court of Justice. Well, today, Minister, will reflect on how we can safeguard South Africa's peace and democracy for the next 30 years and how global geopolitics impact our quest for lasting peace. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we welcome the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, the Honorable Mr. Ronald Lamola.
Thank you very much, Peter Ndoro, the program director, for a very flowering introduction. And I also want to join him in thanking the choir for a very beautiful rendition. And like him, I echo his sentiments that the future of our country is in good hands. To you, the choir, I can just say, to the choir, I can just say, you must just Google the name Pretiende, Innocent Masugu, and Modiba. Every time I travel the globe, particularly in Europe, I discover a new opera singer from South Africa, narrating king and chiefs, presidents, and global stars from beautiful cities, New York, London, and many international cities. So as I saw the lady singing the first hymn, I said, no, we still have many, many more Pretiendes in this country. All the best. Professor Shalsham Kize, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of College of Humanities of the University of KZN. Professor Mxolisi Mchunu, the Chairperson of the Luthuli Museum Council. Mr. Vusimuzi Ndima, Acting DG, Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. And all students of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, members of the academia of the university, student leaders, SRC, all political organizations that have joined here. I can see the South African Student Congress and other who are here. When I see the South African Student Congress, it gives me very good and fond memories. In this hall is the first hall I attended the National General Council of SASCO as a student leader back in 2003. And it is a singular honor for me to stand here as a young leader, to be afforded the opportunity to pay homage to a colossal leader, a giant in the struggle for the liberation of the African people from throughout the continent and the diaspora. Just by the fact that I'm standing here, it's a testimony that the young are being born to take the mantle of the leadership of our country and to take it forward. In 2021, just before the Luthuli lecture, former President Mbeki suggested that the inquest into the death of Albert Luthuli should be reopened, and a relentless campaign and submissions by both the Luthuli Foundation and the Luthuli Museum and other scholars calling for the reopening of the inquest into the death of Albert Luthuli. On the 13th of May, 2024, as the then Minister of Justice in the Republic of South Africa, I accepted and acted upon the recommendations of the NPA to reopen the inquest into the death of Chief Albert Luthuli, Mr. Mlungisi Griffiths Mcenge, and Mr. Boy Manchi. I just wondered, why did this inquest wait for me? Because this was almost 30 years after our democracy. Maybe that is a clear example that the young can also lead this country. 21 September, on the 21st September 1967, an inquest was held by the apartheid regime at the Magistrate Court in Stenga, in the district of Tugela. This inquest found that the cause of death of Albert Luthuli was due to a fractured skull and cerebral accord to the court at the time. The evidence did not disclose any criminal capability on the part of the South African Railways and anyone else. As a result of the representations made to the NPA, which brought to the fore that in 1967, the inquest did not consider certain mathematical and scientific principles. This mathematical and scientific report reveals that it is highly unlikely that Chief Albert Luthuli was struck by a train and died because of that. Considering this information, amongst others, and the investigation done by the TRC unit, Directorate for Priority Crime Investigations, I accepted and agreed that it is in the interest of justice to reopen the inquest into the death of Chief Albert Luthuli. I believe that the family and the museum and all those who love Albert Luthuli, including his organization, the ANC, will finally see justice. And let justice prevail for the family and the comrades of Chief Albert Luthuli to find peace. Just like Albert Luthuli emerged as a leader during a time of unprecedented change in the world, so today we are in the midst of revolutionary changes globally. Luthuli emerged as a leader when the liberation movements throughout the continent and the diaspora fought against colonial occupiers for their self-determination and liberation. In the 1950s, Luthuli was not only involved in the quest for Africa's emancipation from colonialism, he was also deeply engaged in the many demonstrations and strikes and was subjected to surveillance, imprisonment, and abuse by the apartheid government. From the onset, it was clear that we have in Luthuli the archetypal servant leader, the one that was there to serve his people, not himself. His leadership characteristics reveal that he was a humble and a principled man, honorable and a warrior. He was fierce in his demands for equity and peace. As President General of the ANC, he was a leader of 10 million Black Africans and South Africans of non-racial persuasion and led them to campaigns for civil rights in South Africa through non-violent means. He led the biggest march under apartheid, the Defiance Campaign, during his leadership of the ANC, which marked and catapulted the ANC from an organization of allies and gentlemen into a mass-based organization, ready to fight for the struggle of the South African people. This mass-based organization began to galvanize the support across the country and moved and transcended beyond tribal and racial lines. This was during the leadership of Albert Luthuli that the ANC evolved into a mass-based organization and understood that it needs to fight the struggle with everyone who is fighting against oppression. He was also a trade unionist. We continue to learn from his lessons. He's a teacher from death. Hence, we are still able to imbibe from his long history and also from his teachings. It was remarkable as I prepared this commemoration of the life and times of Albert John Mvimbi Luthuli, how the speeches and counsel he shared with us more than 8 years ago is still applicable today, 30 years after the defeat of apartheid through a negotiated settlement. So he's a teacher even in death. In fact, the very idea of a peaceful settlement of South African question and conflicts in other parts of the world was informed by the ideas of Albert Luthuli, ANC leader from 1952 to 1967. He led the Defiance Campaign, as I have said earlier, and he continued to believe in peaceful resistance. As a matter of tactic and strategy, one of the contending questions that the leadership of the ANC at the time had to contend with was whether to just continue with the armed struggle. Others within the organization were beginning to believe, like Nelson Mandela and others, in particular those who emerged from the African National Congress Youth League, that it is now time for an armed struggle. Albert Luthuli disagreed with them, did not believe that it was the time for the armed struggle. But he was persuaded it ended up being a program of the ANC, hence of Umkhonto weSizwe was formed. In today's politics, he could have been characterized otherwise. But with the benefit of hindsight, his teachings remained relevant, even informed, became the philosophy that underpinned our peaceful settlement in 1994. So he continued to persuade and teach the ANC even in death. Because in 1994, we're in the cusp of a civil strife or even a civil conflict, or that could have even escalated into a civil war. But the ANC had to go back to the history books to learn from Albert Luthuli to find a negotiated peaceful settlement as a matter of tactic. As a young activist, he agitated against apartheid, but he always insisted on peaceful resolutions of differences. Luthuli was the quintessential humanist. He put humanity way above personal gain, materialism, and was ready to pay the ultimate price for the freedom of his people. So profound was his conviction in humanity and freedom that he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1960. And tragically, the same year, in 1961, the apartheid state used brute force to massacre 69 Black people in Sharpeville, west of Johannesburg. It was both that award and the massacre at Sharpeville in 1961 that propelled the Norwegian and the broader Scandinavian and anti-apartheid movements to stand in solidarity with South Africa and other colonial oppressed people. But I would like to use these three seminal pieces to draw a direct link between Albert Luthuli's injunction all those decades ago and South Africa's democracy 30 years later. In that almost breathtaking acceptance speech of the Nobel laureate Peace in 1961, Luthuli enjoyed, "In my country, South Africa, the spirit of peace is subject to some of the severest tensions known to man. Yes, it is idle to speak of our country being in peace, because there can be no peace in any part of the world when there are people oppressed." Close quote from the speech of Albert Luthuli as he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize. Thus, when President Mandela said that South Africa cannot be free if the peoples of Palestine and Western Sahara are not free, he took the leaf of the edict of Albert Luthuli. When in 2023, we filed charges against Israel for committing genocide against Gaza and the people of Palestine, we took Luthuli's ordinance to its logical conclusion. The assertion in his acceptance speech that he accepted the award as a recognition of his sacrifice made by many of all races, particularly the Africans of South Africa, all of the people of South Africa, especially the freedom-loving people, that I accept this award. This injunction was both instructive to those who are fighting for liberation and all the African diaspora and many countries in the African continent that supported the struggle for the liberation of our country. That I acknowledge this honor, he instructed us to take two issues very seriously and never waver from them: non-racialism and commitment to peace. Luthuli implored to us never to take our eye off social cohesion and build a nation. Luthuli opined that in our contribution to peace, we are resolved to end such evils as oppression, white supremacy, race, discrimination, tribalism, and all which are incompatible to world peace and security. There is indeed a threat to peace in the world today. 30 years after apartheid, we find ourselves in a situation where we have to constantly call on South Africans to work together for social harmony and unity and end racial divisions and build one nation. It is against this background that the ANC couldn't abandon ship after the last general elections, where the ANC did not get the 50% plus one to form a government alone. We had a duty to continue with the National Democratic Revolution. Independent surveys are indicating that the majority of South Africans' population support the government of national unity. The government of national unity is also commended the world over as a model for democracy. I was recently in the United States, and I said to them, we have got a model, young as we are, as a young democracy. We wish them well as they go to the elections. We hope that as Democrats, whoever loses or wins, they will accept the outcomes of elections, because elections can never be perfect anywhere in the world. Investor sentiment is positive, higher than we have seen in the past 10 years. During the 2021 Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture, former President Thabo Mbeki reminded us about this stark reality, that 90% of the population controls only 20% of our country's wealth, while the top 1% grows richer, the country grows poor as the population increases while the economy stagnates. Economists are beginning to predict that we may see a 2% economic growth in 2025. And in the successive years, in 2026, we may also in the outer years end up with 3.5% economic growth. They are also predicting that if we continue with these years of consecutive economic growth, which we have not seen in the past 10 years, we have an opportunity for the first time to turn the corner against one, lack of inclusive economic growth. The second one, economic growth that can create jobs. There is prediction that there could be massive jobs that are created during that period. In this period where our economy is turning the corner. And if the economy grows and we're able to create jobs, the motive forces of the National Democratic Revolution stand to benefit. So if the motive forces of the National Democratic Revolution stand to benefit from an inclusive economic growth and job creation, how can we be called sellouts for forming the government of national unity? If the president has signed the Bella Bill that is aimed to transform basic education for the benefit of the people of South Africa, how can we be called sellouts for forming the government of national unity? Because we are continuing to do the job that the National Democratic Revolution called us to do. If we are proceeding to file the memorial at the ICJ in the case against Israel on the genocide case, which we are going to do at the end of this month in October, how can we continue to be called sellout when we are still continuing with progressive internationalism as instructed by Chief Albert Luthuli? If we have not veered from these values, if we continue, I argue that the National Democratic Revolution remains on track. It is clear for everyone to see that we are continuing with the progressive human rights outlook in our foreign policy. It is almost 200 days without load shedding. It is clear we have turned the corner for energy security and load shedding, and this is a thing of the past. It will soon be in the Museum of History. Mentioning that we are turning the corner against load shedding during our elections campaign elucidated skepticism and in some instances outright ridicule as an election gimmick by an overzealous ANC government. As we moved around the country prior to the May elections, just mentioning that there will be no load shedding, we are turning the corner, there was all kind of ridicule. That we are lying is because there are elections happening in May. It was seen as an election gimmick. But elections have passed now. We still do not have load shedding. And it is clear all indications are pointing that we have turned the corner. Load shedding is not going to come back. We are now on a growth trajectory. We have resolved the energy security challenge. And economists are very clear that if we resolve the network challenges in the electricity sector, in the logistic, Transnet, and the water challenges, our economy can grow, we can create more jobs, which is a track we are on. The logistic challenges, we have cleared the backlog in Richards Bay. We have cleared, there is no backlog as we speak now in the Richards Bay terminal. And all indicators are showing that we will soon move towards resolving these problems. And with the Richards Bay and the logistic challenge, I must mention and be honest that we still have challenges. We have not yet resolved it, but there has been clearance of the backlogs. But there are still huge challenges in the logistics sector that as a government working with the private sector, we have to resolve. Particularly the moving from trucks to train of most of the commodities that we're transporting. And this province of KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape, you are the hardest hit with the brunt of a number of accidents. I've seen one yesterday on the N2, horrific accident, and may the soul of the deceased rest in peace. We must continue to send our condolences to the families. But I want to state that as government, we are aware of this challenge. We are working very hard to resolve the logistic challenges of our country to move from road to train. And this one won't be easy because there is a number of teething challenges that we are facing at Transnet. Firstly, the balance sheet. Secondly, the locomotive problems that we are aware of. The contracts with related to locomotives have been affected. But we are now gradually moving towards finding a solution. And one of them will be to allow private access into the rail network to help us to solve this problem. It is indeed a problem which we have to confront and solve on a day-to-day basis. But we believe that if we still have a platform to work with South Africans, to work with you, NGOs and everyone, and the private sector to find a long-lasting solution in the logistics sector, we can, in the next 5 years, say, even with the logistics, we can be able to solve the challenges. We also have challenges in the water sector. Most of you have seen that we have received a $1 billion loan from what is called the BRICS Bank, which is aimed to resolve this challenge in the water sector. It will also be a long-term problem, but there is determination, the challenges. We are working with the sector to find long-lasting solutions, particularly to find water to the tap. When Luthuli described us as a peace-loving people, he directed us to work for peace, not just at home, but throughout Africa and the world. It is for this reason that we will continue to work for peace by means of negotiations and dialogue, not the barrel of the gun. We will continue to work for peace in Sudan, in the Sahel region, the DRC, and Cabo Delgado in the north of Mozambique, and elsewhere in the continent. In the acceptance speech, Luthuli accepted the honor, not only to South Africa, but to the whole continent of Africa, to this continent, Mother Africa. It is clear he coached us to make sure we have an African agenda, one committed to work for the regeneration of Africa, the honor, through development, peace, and security. We will continue to work for the realization of the goals contained in Agenda 2063, the Africa we want and silencing of the guns. We as Africans, the children of Mother Africa, must see it as our singular duty to ensure that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement comes to life. As most of you are aware, the first shipment on the Africa Free Trade Area happened between here and Richards Bay and in Ghana. And we're hopeful that there will be more so that Africa can trade with itself. We are the only continent trading at 17% together. But if we can trade more in this continent above the 17%, the economy of our country will grow, but also the economy of many African states can be able to grow. In a remarkable political gesture and the act of goodwill and magnanimity, Albert Luthuli took his host in Oslo and all international guests by surprise when he extended the hand of friendship to the people of Europe when they came to that continent. Reconciliation and good-heartedness is thus not something that was started by Mandela. It was a seed long planted by the teachings of Albert Luthuli. It runs through the veins of Luthuli's movement. Fast forward 30 years ago, what we're asking for, candidly, is so genuine a partnership. We do not need external forces, multipliers in African conflicts. We need partners for peace. When we say we are ready to govern and to engage on issues of just transition, we mean everyone in the world must be able to partner with us. It remains inconceivable that Africa, which is the mostly affected by climate change, receive less than 3% of the global financing on climate change. It is against this background that when we host the G20, which we are taking over its hosting in December 2024, climate change will become one of the main agenda of the South African government. We will also prioritize issues of global financial architecture, issues of artificial intelligence, not only governance of artificial intelligence, but also innovation. Because our country, we are aware of our challenges that on the side of innovation, we are struggling to fund creatives and innovators. And this is a space where most of the world find growth. So we have to find finance to enable our young people who are creative and who are innovative to find resources to patent and also to sell their products in the markets of the world. Today, you no longer have only to sell in the village where you come from. Through the various online platforms, you can sell to anyone, anywhere in the world. And the platform of G20 will give us that opportunity to engage with the people of the world for just financing, for just inclusion of the global south, economically and also through financing. We are also going to put a matter that has come through the UN General Assembly, the Pact of the Future. And I hope that the University of KwaZulu-Natal will study it and make it a mainstream issue, because this is a pact that will enable us to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The Pact of the Future is adopted by the UN General Assembly, is a groundbreaking initiative aimed to reform the Security Council, but also to revive and renew the Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by the people of the world. One critical issue that the UN General Assembly adopted through an expert by the UN Secretary General, and I believe ourselves as Africans also have to lead in this regard, because we are the most endowed with natural resources, is the debate on critical minerals. All the revolutions and the phases of minerals in the world, Africa was an extraction site. We have an opportunity because all the minerals, or the majority of the minerals that are aimed to power the economies of the future are found in Africa. The minerals for artificial intelligence, the minerals for electric vehicles, the minerals for a just transition are found in the African continent. So the African continent has to lead the debate that we must find value addition, mineral processing and beneficiation in the African continent, so that we don't only extract and export raw materials, but we export finished products from our continent. And there is value addition here in the African continent. This will not succeed unless universities in our country come to the fore and play a critical role and also help us to ensure that implementation becomes a reality. Because sometimes we can talk and talk with no implementation, but with a clearly articulated research and development from our university partners, we believe it will be practically possible to achieve the goals of our minerals in this continent being processed here in the continent, and our young people playing a role in the various sectors of our economy, in manufacturing, in mineral beneficiation, in artificial intelligence, in the various sectors of the economy. So I'm saying the G20 is here, Prof. Mkize. The university should start to say, this is how we can contribute to the hosting of the G20 by South Africa. I'm raising these, colleagues, because the G20 will be the biggest national project after the 2010 FIFA World Cup and our fight against COVID-19. We have to make it a people's G20 and make all people of the world to understand that South Africa is beautiful, South Africa is capable, and South Africa has got hospitality. And that South Africa wants to be in the mainstream of global economy and the issues of geopolitics of the world. And we are a capable state. We are not asking for any help. We are saying we have the capabilities. The world must just give us an opportunity, and the people of South Africa must use this platform to showcase what we have to the people of the world. May the soul of Chief Albert Luthuli rest in peace, and may justice prevail in the inquest for the Chief Albert Luthuli. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I'd like to thank the Honourable Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamola, for delivering, I think, a very important message today at this memorial lecture for 2024. And thank you so much for reminding us about the profound thoughts and ideas that Chief Albert Luthuli had all those years ago, and how relevant they are today, and how you connected key moments in his life, like the Nobel Prize speech that he gave, and some of the things that he shared in there that perhaps we haven't paid too much attention to, but were profound. You talked about this constructive internationalism. And this is what we're about, and this is what we need to be doing, particularly on this continent. Chief himself envisioned a united and democratic Africa where equality and justice prevailed. And he advocated for nonviolent resistance, especially with this idea for peace against oppression, emphasizing the importance of African unity in the struggle for liberation. And you talked about the Agenda 2063 amongst a lot of the things that you shared with us, the Africa that we want, and some of the initiatives that are already currently underway, like the African Continental Free Trade Area, because Chief Albert Luthuli believed in the potential for a prosperous continent driven by collaboration among African nations and a commitment to human rights. And we wish you and our government the very best in the G20 project, because we did an amazing job with the World Cup. And I think this is, as you said, even bigger and even more important. So we certainly hope that you fly the flag for us very well on that front. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand as we thank Honorable Minister Ronald Lamola. Right, so we've had the message, it's been delivered, and I think you've had a few moments now to digest and think about what Minister Lamola said. I'd like to invite now Dr. Sakile Khadebe, who's the International Relations Program Coordinator at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, to join us on stage and to take a chair to help us with the discussion. So please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Dr. Khadebe. Can you hear me? Ah, there we go. All right. So, Dr. Khadebe, I'm so glad that you joined me on stage because I often have to scratch my head about good questions that we need to ask. And I know that international relations is something that very close to you. And so maybe you can lead us with a few points of discussion with Minister Lamola to generate some thoughts and ideas and questions that we'll be getting from the floor as well. So over to you as you lead us in this discussion and this conversation. Do you have a microphone?
One, two, three, four, five. Okay. Minister Ozi Lamola, Minister of DECO, and the Deputy President of the Institute League of Maritime, the DVC, and the head of college, Professor Mkiza Kabazela Mpatsumkhulu, acting DG Sport, Arts and Culture, Luthuli Museum, Leadership, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, the Luthuli family. Maybe let me use this term before I offend anyone. Let me say all protocol observed so that I don't offend anyone by omission. Thanks, Minister Lamola. Maybe as just a background that in his Nobel Peace Prize speech titled Africa and Freedom in Oslo, among other things, the Chief Luthuli emphasized the struggle and aspirations of African people seeking freedom and justice. The speech was mainly around that. Yeah. I think one of the key lessons which South Africa as a country, which can learn from the legacy of Inkosi uLuthuli, is important, I mean, of a principled leadership and moral integrity, right? Maybe before going now straight to direct few questions, I think 2 or 3 of them, then we'll take it from there. Maybe one must commend you, Minister, on your 6th administration successes, especially I will single out the case of Israel, Palestine, taking them head on to the ICJ. I think we must commend you for that. It was very brave and it's recommendable. Yes. But I think we can go further now that you are now in the DECO. You can still take that further, moving from taking Israel to the ICJ. I think we can challenge now the Prime Minister direct now, taking him directly as a person to the ICC now to be trialed for crimes against humanity, if not genocide. But now as a person now, not just as a state, I think we can pursue that, Minister. Once again, on the development of Middle East, we know that Middle East hold a special place for many reasons because of oil, gas, etc. in the stage. What is really our position currently regarding the latest development in Middle East? Obviously, by the latest developments, I'm not talking about the usual hostilities, but the recent attacks, the missiles are going both sides now currently. What is it that or what is our position, maybe so to speak, currently now? We know our foreign position, but currently, what is it that seeks to be our position currently? On the Middle East, and taking into account that our foreign policy should be at least biased towards peace, stability, and the principles of Ubuntu as enshrined in our foreign policy principles. So we take that into account, which really is biased and linked to what it was ultimately believed in, especially the issue of peace and security. Maybe the second patient that, okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah, so let's do one question at a time and let's get a response, Minister.
Yeah, no, thank you. While I do agree with you that indeed us going to the ICJ was an important and one of our biggest achievements as the 6th administration to bring the plight of the Palestinian people to the global community. And as you see now, the collective conscience of the global community is beginning to shift in agreement with the initial South Africa's position. When we did it in January, we were met with scorn and ridicule from mostly the Western countries. But today they are beginning to somersault. And the case now, we are supported by some of the Western countries like Spain and so forth, Ireland. So the support for the case, and we are proceeding. We will be filing something called a memorial at the end of this month. But I also think that us opening the inquest of Chief Albert Luthuli was also one of the greatest achievements of the 6th administration. Not only Chief Albert Luthuli, but Griffiths Mcenge and the Credec 4. I believe this was also one of the greatest achievements because, as I said earlier, I also could not understand why it has to wait for me. But the key thing that I want to raise, particularly for a university, is that if you look at the reasons why the case could not be conclusively concluded at the time, is because the court undermined certain scientific and mathematical formula and methodology. And I believe the University of KwaZulu-Natal is better placed when the inquest open to showcase your skill as a university, to help the court arrive at a conclusion that conclusively show through scientific input and this mathematical formula. And I believe this is a huge space that even as we go to the ICJ, we will showcase a number of skills from the country from various experts. But in this case, you will need the university to help the court with this scientific and mathematical formula. And I believe with the advance of technology and many other things, universities may now be better placed to help the courts. With regards to our position in the Middle East, we are still very clear that there must be de-escalation of conflict, there must be cessation of fire, there must be countries of the world not be complacent with the act of genocide by supplying weapons and all manner of things that enables the war. And with regards to Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, as you are aware, he has been charged by the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. And now, when we were at the UN General Assembly, we met the prosecutor on a number of issues, and we insisted to him that he must work not just for this case against Israel, but in his job, he must do it without fear. If there is evidence against anyone, even from the West, the prosecutor must act, because the court was not created for Africans. It was created for all people who violate international law. And if you look in reality deeply, one of the reasons why South Africa met with ridicule when we went to the ICJ is because there was some subtle feeling that we are not the right people. Because this court was meant to try only Africans. How dare Africans go and try someone in that court? You know. But the law must have no eyes. Justice must prevail.
Thank you. Maybe going forward, I think I'm not sure what is it that we should be doing in the next 30 years, especially with the changing of bilateral forces globally. Now, since we are moving clearly from the unilateral dominance of the US to multilateral domination now, especially with the BRICS and also the emergence of other players, especially in Asia. So, do we really need? I think there's a need for a reform, especially in the UN Security Council. We need to reform the UN Security Council, especially that P5. It's not working, especially for us. I think we agree with us that it's not working for us in the third world or Africa specifically. But I think that it's just a thought. Now, what I like maybe to share with us, Mr. Lamola, is that given the South Africa's commitment, principle of Ubuntu enshrined in our foreign policy, peace and stability, which are also core values of the late Nkosi Luthuli. How do you characterize South Africa's society? Are we a violent society? Are we a stable society? Maybe before you want to answer that, maybe you might want to think about your Washwashobane massacre, you might want to think about your Paipatong, your June 16, you might want to think, even recently, your Marikana, you might want to think about KZN uprising or looting, whatever you want to call it. Is our society in line with the beliefs of Nkosi Luthuli, especially the aspects where we deal with conflict and the issue of peace?
Yeah, no, thank you. You know, as you were speaking, it just reminded me of last night, you know, the Bafana game, you know, and they played very well, where everyone was behaving. And I will prefer to use it as an analogy because fans in their thousands were celebrating soccer and the skill and the exuberance of the players. But just 3 anarchists jump into the stadium and it has sent a message that we are just a country of anarchists. But there were 38,000 people there who were behaving well, who were properly. We have got the scars of apartheid. the violence of, as you have said, of Wipatu, Washobashobane. We have these scars as a country, and we have not been able to really get fully rid of them. The Constitution has just enabled us to find values, to build a society that is shifting away from that difficult past that we are coming from. So we are still contending with those contradictions as a South African society. But I believe that in the past 30 years, we have been able to manage those difficulties. And maybe the question that Prof raised when he was speaking on behalf of the Luthuli Foundation, what then do we need to sustain this relative stability that the Constitution has created? Is to ensure that there is one economic growth, but that economic growth must be inclusive, because you cannot continue to have the majority of the population outside the mainstream of the economy. The second thing is that that growing economy must create jobs. And the majority of the population must find themselves in those employment. We must resolve the inequality question, because people cannot eat the Constitution, they can't eat politics. They want to see food on the table. So that should be our main priority. And that's why even ourselves in the government of national unity, we have placed this as the two main objectives, as a main priority that we must work for. Hence, we are working to resolve the challenges in the energy sector and in the logistics sector, so that we resolve the problems in the network industry, just the basic for the economy to grow in an inclusive way.
Thank you. All right, so I'm watching the time, and I want to get our audience involved in asking some questions. But before that, as someone who's passionate about the continent, and I'm monitoring all the time what people are saying, and Minister, people commend you on the work that you've done at the ICJ, particularly with the conflict in the Middle East. The same people are asking questions about where is the energy and the passion in dealing with issues on our continent. We have military juntas that have done coups d'etats in 3 countries in West Africa. We have genocide playing out in Sudan right now. And I just wonder, ahead of the AU meetings, as foreign ministers, chiefs of diplomacy, what are you doing about peace on the continent with the same energy that we're seeing with helping the people of Gaza?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Peter. We always get this question. And we always answer by providing evidence of our role. As you will be aware, I was at the Thabo Mbeki Foundation on Saturday when I landed from London. And one of the key discussions there was this issue of peace and stability in the continent. But in the background of the engagements was also to persuade the warring factions in Sudan in an informal platform by the foundation, which we think is also a very important platform for them to engage with each other, to cease fire and to cease hostilities. And there is also the UN Special Envoy or Special Rapporteur, who has also engaged with the president reporting. I also engaged with him also at the AU level to try to continue to persuade the two parties to come to the table. And it is the most difficult thing. And the conflict in Sudan is complicated by external factors, because while there are many proxy wars in the continent, none of them equal the one in Sudan. There is so many players where it really complicates, with many capital cities involved in this conflict. Hence, as South Africa, we have called for the AU to be at the center of the resolution of the dispute, and we continue to do so. And our president also does play a role to help that process. As you may also be aware, the president has been to Uganda, to Rwanda, and recently to Angola, with one mission: to engage all the role players in the conflict in the Eastern DRC. Secondly, we have got our defense force in the eastern part of the DRC that is aimed to stabilize the situation, but to allow the negotiation process to give it a chance. Thirdly, our defense force have just stabilized the northern part of Mozambique, Cabo Delgado. The heroic sacrifice and work of the defense force, it's still to be written about. In the northern parts of Mozambique, as we speak now, there is relative stability, although there is some sporadic incidents and so forth, but the work that was done by the defense force. So our contribution to peace and stability in the African continent far surpasses any contribution we've made anywhere in the world. Even our contribution to the issue of Palestine does not even come close to this. What makes those contributions to be more pronounced, like the Palestinian one? Maybe Peter will help. You're an expert in the media. The media puts more volume on the Palestinian conflict. If you watch any media house now, every day, without fail, it's Palestine, it's the Middle East, and no one mentions Sudan. Ourselves, in all our speeches, we've mentioned Sudan. The president has done so in the UN General Assembly. Myself, if I meet anyone, we make sure that they on the first day. And we must really sometimes thank the public broadcaster in South They pinpoint who are the main players, who are the funders, and which capitals across the globe are playing the role. And that's why we're able to say this is what is complicating the most of these wars, because you can get into the generals, engage with them, and some of the leaders of these organizations, but they have to account somewhere, and they may get a different mandate in terms of the peaceful discussions that you may have had. So this complicates the situation, but overall, everything said and done, it goes to natural resources. The scouring to extract the endowed rich minerals of the African continent. And that's why we believe that the single most biggest contribution by the last UN General Assembly is the Pact of the Future and is the report on strategic minerals. Because that report pinpoints where are the resources and what must the African continent do to ensure that these resources benefits the people of the African continent, so that we don't have to continue to be exporters of raw materials, but have value add in the continent, but also have our own players in the continent who will not just, they will also be here with us to resolve when there are disputes.
All right. I think I want to come to this side, and then the question was over there, wasn't it? So let's come to this side. Let's try and get at least one question in each block. There's a gentleman here at the front. I'm going to put seniority privilege here. All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Please just
Ndoro.
say who you are so that people
Thank you,
know
Mr.
who they're
Ndoro,
talking
for
to.
respecting my white hair, you know. Fraser Mjali, editor of Humelela Community Newspaper. I don't want to sound kind of not believing stuff, but Mr. Minister, the case of Chief Albert Luthuli, have you investigated the pros and the cons as far as the possibilities of cracking this case is involved? Because it happened so many years, so long ago. The Mqanga one is slightly earlier, and there's been progress there in terms of Nofamela and Kutsia, you know, getting what they got, you know. But the Chief Luthuli one is such a long time ago. I know we spoke about the university's involvement of them, but what are the possibilities of cracking this case with this inquest, which I actually congratulate you for bringing it on board. Thank you very much.
All right. And in addition to that question, Ms. Gandhi says, when will the outcome of the inquiry into the sad death of Chief Luthuli be publicized?
Yeah, they can't be publicized because the inquest has not yet started. So yeah, I think the judge president of KZN, I don't know, by the time I left justice, he still had to appoint the inquiry judge. I can't remember whether he's appointed or not, but once it's appointed, it will be announced publicly, and the people who have got information and expertise will help the court. And I think that then also goes to the question that comes from the newspaper editor. Obviously, this was not an easy question, even for myself when I had to make the decision. Whether there can be sufficient evidence to prove beyond or on a balance of probability, because an inquest is, the test is different. It's not like the trial itself. Whether the trial, the test is beyond reasonable doubt. So the test for the inquest is different. But there was a compelling input that was made to the NPA, and the NPA believed and brought the input to ourselves. which speaks to these two issues that I spoke about, the mathematical formula and the scientific evidence that could help. But I believe, like any other inquiry, there's a possibility of someone being acquitted. But there's also a possibility, if there is compelling evidence, for someone to be found to be responsible for this. So that is the point I emphasize, that, you know, those who wants to derail our democracy, I won't mention which ones, who were against this country, who were against any form of democracy, today are using the courts as the biggest defenders of our constitution. But our own people who are the beneficiaries of this constitution are not using the court to defend their own rights. I won't say who are those people, but you know them. But the issue is, once there is this inquiry of Albert Luthuli, we have got mathematicians, progressive mathematicians of world standards, scientists and all that. They must go and help the court to come to a conclusion that does prove that what is at face value, because what was brought to me was a prima facie case. And anyway, any inquiry, it's a prima facie case. And that's why there's an inquiry to find out that whether there is indeed a plausible evidence to show that someone or there was some kind of foul play. So I believe that the university or experts in the field will be and can be able to assist the court to arrive at the correct conclusion.
A question from here. Is there anyone? Okay, there we go. Just stand so that they can see where the microphone must come to. All right, so we've done this block, we've done this, we're doing this block, we've done this block. We're still going to do that block. Okay, all right.
Greetings to you, Minister. I'll try and speak both languages, English and isiZulu, because I'm in KwaZulu-Natal. You'll forgive me. So my question, no, thank you very much. So my question is very simple. I've attended one lecture on the problems in Palestine, but I did not want to ask this question about demilitarizing South Africa. It can be Africa or South Africa, but in particularly, I will limit my contextualization to South Africa. We know in the pursuit of this topic, the pursuit of peace lessons from Chief Albert Luthuli. Most South Africans are so militant, such that we find violence in different dimensions. What is the government doing to try and demilitarize South Africa? I know myself, I grew up in Mpumalanga Township. I've seen it all because I was a teacher there. And part of the violence was contextualized to our school, where I started to teach at Phezulu High School, and young people died. And many people also died in Mpumalanga. We used to go past many corpses. As a teacher, I used to drive at night and during the day, past maybe 10 or 15 corpses in one day. So what is South African government doing about it in order to demilitarize the youth and adults? We see some of them are solving their problems through strikes and many other means rather than a peace solution. So let me limit my question to this. So ngiyacela ke uba ngaba nempendulo ukuthi kudaleka uxolo nasentsheni ngenxa yegazi elikhona ngaphakathi kubona.
Thank you.
Yeah, ngiyabonga ngalombuzo ukuthi I think it is one of the programs that government ran since 1994. The first one obviously was the TRC program. And the police also ran a lot of programs, even the civil units of the police. And I think there's also a lot of programs under Department of Culture on social cohesion and so forth. But we need to do more. Because even a number of amnesties that were aimed to take or to get back the arms that are in the various hands of individuals in society have not yet taken arms, all of them, out of the hands of everyone who has them. So there is indeed a clear need for us to have that focus program, having learned from the lived experience of all these programs that we have run since 1994, the TRC, the programs of the police on amnesty, the civil section of the police, and also some of them ran by social development and the departments of arts and culture on social cohesion. What experiences have we learned, and what becomes the contribution of civil society for us to work together to deal with this challenge, firstly, of the arms in our community, secondly, of the violent disposition that we find people having in solving any problem, where you have to ban a library to demand a road, or to ban a road to demand a library. You know, all those kind of things are part of a real challenge. And I think after the July unrest, the program that happened by the Human Rights Commission was also towards that. Maybe it's also one of them that we can learn from and build from that.
Okay, and I think the last, yo, I don't even know how to. All right, let me get two questions. One from a student at the back, and then one at the front from, I think, the lady with the glasses. Yeah. So the student at the back, yeah. Just say your name, what school you're at. Perhaps we might make you head girl next year. You never know. You never know.
Greeting to everyone. My name is Amahle. I want to introduce my group here. We are the authors. We are the chorus of Rustic, is running by Beginkosi Ngwenyama Kuz. Sorry, we didn't bring our book, but we have bring one book here. Zindlela Zombili. It's 130. It's a book from Amahle, but it's not here yet. Okay, my question is how did Chief Albert Luthuli survive in the apartheid?
Okay. Do you want to just get the lady at the front here that question as well? Let's just get them together.
Thank you very much. Greetings, Minister, and thank you so much for this lovely lecture. My name is Nontle. I am an alumni of Howard Law School. That's my claim to fame. Minister, my question is on the extraction industry, or the continent and the country being known and famous for its extraction. I just wanted to find out from the minister how far we are as a country in creating an industry that exploits the opportunities. I heard the minister saying that we should be beneficiating and we should be processing. I do know that this dialogue started maybe about 20 years ago. I think I was involved at some point. And at that point, we were still saying we should be beneficiating and we should be processing. I just wondered whether maybe we can, with this upcoming G20 summit, create a platform as we prepare to start this dialogue and maybe conclude it, that it is unjust that as a continent and as a country, we are famously an extraction continent, and yet we are not beneficiating, and that the international markets are not giving us a proper platform to be a beneficiating and processing country. And also that it is unjust that we are extracting and we experience so much of the havoc that is wreaked by the industry in climate, and yet we are not at the center of benefiting from these climate change solutions and finances that are being given out. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very, very much indeed. Minister?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. With regards to the first question, my sister, njengoba ubonile, he did not survive. At the end, the apartheid government find means which remains questionable to date, and that's why there is the inquest. He fought against the apartheid government as a teacher, as a trade unionist, and as a writer. He used all his might and skills for the liberation of his people. Maybe that could be the lesson to yourself as students, to do everything you can. Firstly, to participate, to gain skills, to participate in the mainstream of the South African economy, and also to fight for justice in your communities and everywhere. But I'm glad that you are part of a choir, which is a sign of some level of commonality, because that's where it starts. It starts in the football pitch, to work together in association, in a choir, or whatever platform where people come together. And you should never undermine you being here as a choir. It's a very big thing. In the next 20 years, you look back to this as something that has shaped your life. With regards to the issues of extraction, as I've said, that the report of the SG of the UN points to us what we have to do. So one of the challenges I think we have as Africans and as sometimes in government is that we can talk and talk, you know, and talk and talk and talk. But some things we just have to do them. Action. And in this regard, we just have to work as a collective, as the African continent, because the report points to the fact that if we don't work together as a continent, those who want the minerals, the endowed resources of our continent will divide us, because they will just go to that country and isolate the other one. And once they have the resources from that country, it means they're no longer price takers, but they can dictate the price because they have the mineral. They may no longer even need you as a South Africa. So that's why there's a need for us to work as a collective in one voice on this issue. And ourselves as the South African government, we are doing our best to bring that cohesiveness. And we will obviously allow the platform of the G20 to be used to give the volume and the platform for South Africans and Africans to fight for economic justice that relates to even speaking to the issues of capacitating us with regards to the beneficiation. Because, and that is the reason why I do say the role of universities is huge, particularly when you speak of beneficiation, because there you need research and development, you need to build capacity and so forth. No rhetoric is going to beneficiate. We need to have determination by our own people who work hard in the universities and also in the plants. If you go to some of the countries in the world which have been able to make it, and there's an example like China, you will be shocked at the level of work they put. They work 24 hours. Uthulele hotel uzwe kudlula imishini lapha phezu kwakho. That is the life in China. There is nothing called human rights and labor rights. You know, ourselves, while they do have those rights, they protect them and so forth, but there is a way in which they ensure that it benefits the economy. So even ourselves as South Africans, I do think that we also have to take responsibility within the rights, inculcate a culture of hard work so that we can grow our economy. It's only when we work hard that we can be able to achieve. And it's a reality. We have a number of social problems which we accept and we say indeed government must intervene. But also individuals, I believe we have to take responsibility to work hard to benefit our own businesses, but that will also work hard to benefit our own country.
All right, so we've run out of time, but one final thought, and I'm glad that the voice of the youth was heard today. Minister, the average age of the African citizen is 19. They're young people. And I get a sense sometimes that we have great conversations at high level, and these young people give us warnings. We saw it in Kenya, we saw it in Nigeria, we saw it in hashtag Fees Must Fall.
So that
Periodically
it's only when we
express themselves.
that we can
And I
be
just wonder if we're talking about peace in the future, are the young people in those conversations sitting at the table and not just being dictated to? Because they will show us, I promise you.
Yeah, indeed. There is a platform of a Pan-Africanist Youth Union for the African, which is an arm of the Pan-African Parliament, where a number of young people do have a platform to engage on a number of issues affecting the continent. But I do believe that we can do more through various platforms in civil society and create more space. And it is for that reason that ourselves, we continue to open interface between the department and universities, and also NGOs and think tanks, so that we can be able to get the inputs even of young people to shape our foreign policy.
All right, I hope I hope that this is taken heed of, because our young people are getting restless. And they're not going to use the ballot box to determine their future. They've shown us. So, young people, we look to you. And Minister Lamola, thank you so much. Dr. Khadebe, thank you very much indeed for introducing the discussion. And right now, I'm going to stand up actually, because this next part is one of our traditions that we love very well. And this is where we, for our speakers, our lecture deliverers, we hand over a gift as a token of appreciation for the message that you would have shared. And what we do is we get, and it's usually a young person we found, to, we commission them to do a piece of art. And this year, a young man by the name of Lindokutle Mbambo put together this work of art, which you're going to see shortly, just to give you an idea of who he is. And we'll bring him up shortly, but I just want to know about Lindo. Lindo is a BSc Computer Science and IT graduate, and also a former staff member of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. He's passionate about his art as well, with a background in digital and traditional illustrations, having worked with the Center for Indigenous Knowledge Systems at UKZN. He sees his role as transforming research into accessible visual forms, bridging the gap for communities with limited literacy. And during his studies, he co-founded Ionotic Artistry, providing art services to the university community, including paintings for offices and events. And since graduation, he's continued to sustain himself through his art. He draws deep inspiration from the legacy of Chief Albert Luthuli, a symbol of courage and resilience in the face of adversity, and his unwavering commitment to justice, peace, and that's what he says motivates him to express his vision through art. Ladies and gentlemen, to present and this gift to our deliverer of this year's Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture, it's my great pleasure to welcome on stage, and let's please give him a huge hand Lindo Kutle Mbambo. Minister, can I ask you to stand? And if I could also call upon from the Luthuli Museum, I think it is the chairperson of the council to join us on stage. And gentlemen, if you could go over towards that stand where the art is standing, and if I could just ask the young artist to go on the other side. Yes, yes, because that's going to be his constant position. There's going to be lots of pictures taken with you in it. And so if I could ask the chairperson to perhaps guide our minister towards the work of art, and for the for Lindo to smile or do something as we take away the cover of this work of art. And ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause, because this art is amazing. And to you, Minister, we thank you very, very much indeed. And this is our token of our appreciation. A big hand, ladies and gentlemen. How amazing is that work of art? All right. Minister, do you want to stand closer to the painting? Let's swap places there. There you go. All right. Have you guys got the picture? Lindo, smile. This is huge, man. That is awesome. I mean, it really, really is fantastic. And this is a person who's a BSc in computer science and IT. But look at the art that he's able to generate. Fantastic. Well done. Congratulations to you. All right. So no, don't go away, Minister. You've got a lot more work to do, unfortunately for you. And Lindo, stay there, because we'd like to capture this moment. I'd like to call upon the following people to join us on stage, starting with Professor Mkhize, Mr. Ndima Sakile, Dr. Sakile, and Mr. Sandile Luthuli to join us on stage for the next picture. Let's give him a big round of applause. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. All right. Okay. Is everybody in? Yeah. Linda, you're the star of the show. I'll believe in it. Yeah. A big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations and well done. Can I also now call upon Luthuli Museum Council members to join us on stage? Chief Albert Luthuli Research Chair, the Luthuli Museum Director as well to join us on stage. All right. I think we're going to need to probably move the painting to make sure we get everybody on the stage. But as they come up onto the stage, please, again, a warm hand for the work of this young man. Let's make this a moment that he'll never forget as we appreciate his work. All right. Okay, so hopefully we've got everybody, Luthuli Museum Council members, Research Chair, chairpersons there, Luthuli Museum Director, and representatives from the 3 partner organizations. Are we all there? All right. If you can't see the camera, you're not in the picture. So make sure you can see the cameras. A big hand, ladies and gentlemen. All right, now don't go away, but what I'd like you to do is if the Luthuli family members that are here could come up onto the stage and stand in front of everybody else so that we get a good picture. All right, a big hand. Huh? Is that Sandile? Go closer to the picture. It's a family picture. No, no, must insist. Very modest. Okay, smile everybody. Big hands, ladies and gentlemen. Have you got your picture? All right. So for our artists, once again, please let's recognize his achievement. Minister Lamola, thank you very, very much indeed for a powerful message. And ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask the people on the stage to make their way down. Minister Lamola, if you could take your seat, we still have work to do with you. And whilst all of this is happening, it's my great pleasure to welcome, to represent the Luthuli family, and from the Luthuli Foundation. And I always say, you know, when you have struggle icons and struggle heroes, they give so much of themselves to the millions, and often it's at the expense of the family members immediately around them. So we want to say thank you very much indeed to the Luthuli family for giving us the chief and allowing him to do the work that he did, often sadly at your expense. So ladies and gentlemen, representing the Luthuli Foundation and the Luthuli family, please welcome Sandile Luthuli.
Thank you very much, Peter. Mine is probably the easiest task of the day as we draw towards conclusion. It is to acknowledge quite a number of people who have made today the success that it has been. I need to acknowledge the University of KZN, represented here by Professor Mkhize, our very long-standing partner in this heritage journey. Acknowledge various academics in the room without, Professor Sekhalo from the Chief Albert Luthuli Research Chair at UNISA, Dr. Sakile Khatebe, our own Professor Mchunu, Dr. Hay, and others who I may not be privy to them being here. I must also acknowledge the Deputy Director General Ndima from the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. As an individual, not representing the department, he has been a pillar of support to us since inception of the Luthuli Museum. Acknowledge the university community broadly, the community of Groundville, who support us as a family and as an institution unreservedly. The Luthuli Museum Council and the staff of the Luthuli Museum.
we all acknowledge you. In giving this vote of thanks, I want to address young people in the room that you must never stop dreaming. There's a slogan that says South Africa is alive with possibilities. Standing before you today is a man of stature who today walks in the most hallowed corridors of power in the world. And all of this he has achieved at the tender age of 40. Uma ngesiZulu sithi inkunzi sematholeni, sikhuluma ngalo ophambi kwenu njengamanje. Finding time in the diary of a Minister of International Relations is a massive challenge. We must express our gratitude to the Minister and his team for prioritizing this memorial lecture amongst his many competing demands. In one of his final acts in the 6th administration, as we have heard, Minister Lamula signed off the reopening of the inquest. This is a patriotic duty of immense magnitude, not only for the Luthuli family, the African National Congress, but the people of South Africa as a whole. We call on the current Minister of Justice to expedite the launch of the actual inquest. We must also thank the Minister for working tirelessly, using multiple platforms, whether it is the International Court of Justice, the United Nations, BRICS, the African Union, amongst others, to improve the socio-political circumstances for the people of Palestine. To put this in perspective, 43,000 innocent lives have been lost in less than 1 year. This is roughly 3,500 people dying per month, or 300 people perishing per day. It is unprecedented in modern history. And elevating this into the international domain is indeed great work that the 6th administration has done, and it has been bequeathed into the 7th administration. We also thank Dr. Khatebe for provoking deep intellectual discussion that complemented the minister's address. We also thank our audience for their active and spirited participation in the discussions today. It speaks to the huge dividend that we place on a peaceful society, a key teaching of our patriot. Equally, we extend thanks to the University of KZN for hosting us with grace as they have done on so many previous occasions. Finally, thanks to Peter Ndoro for the skill you bring as a facilitator and ensuring that our audience is constantly engaged and leaves the proceedings of today fully enriched. With those few words, I wish you all a safe journey home, and hope to see you again as we host the 19th Memorial Lecture. Thank you very much.
Sandile, thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you again for your family and Chief Albert Luthuli, the work that he did and the sacrifices that you and your family made over time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how was the lecture? Hey, whoa. Fantastic. All right, so late lunch is served now. And if I could just ask our dignitaries to stand and make their way. And ladies and gentlemen, let's let them first leave the venue, and then you two then can follow. I'll let you know when we can do that. Let's give them a big hand as we thank them all very much indeed for being with us. Minister, you're gonna stay, unfortunately. It never ends. Yeah. He's gonna do the interview.
He's going to do a quick interview. Yeah, yeah, right there, yeah. Yeah, carry on and we'll get.
Oh, really? Oh, well, then stay, wait for it.
Yeah, you have to stay and wait for it.
All right.
I can let the guests go, yeah.
All right.